The telegraph came in. They're going to wipe out an entrenched power base, and they may not go easily.
Now, there may be an energy crisis. Well, this president has a very forward-thinking energy policy. Why do you think he's down on the ranch cutting that brush all the time? He's trying to create an alternative energy source. By 2008, we will have a mesquite-powered car.
That small amount of solar panels, running especially a 7,500 pound motor, pushing a 375-pound positive displacement pump, 4-inch intake, 4-inch outtake, 10-foot high, and you're doing over 5,000 gallons per day. Right here in Mobile, Alabama, where you find nothing running off of solar panels that has any kind of a power at all. And if you look at that current, you'll see that current, by the time you get down to 250 horsepower, is drawing 275 amps of current. And the heat of a motor is the current squared times the resistance. That's why they won't work off of solar panels. Solar panels are known to produce voltage. They don't produce current. I've always said I run this motor off of voltage, not current. What they teach is wrong. Y'all can know it by this technology, and the world should be behind this. Anyone that can, come out to Phoenix, call Joe Noffi at area code 205-835-9022. We're going to do this on July the 5th in Phoenix, Arizona, because they get their water from California, from Phoenix, from Nevada, and several other states, from the Colorado River. Now, it's a known fact. You can take a pump, take a conventional motor, and take sieves, and take salt water and run it through it and make fresh water. But the energy cost prohibits man from doing that because it makes the cost of water so high. These motors can be built and set on the side of the Pacific Ocean and totally solve their water problem as well as their energy problem. Everybody on the West Coast should be excited and behind this. We're going to be demonstrating that, and it's going to be running at a faster speed than you see right here, because it's about 90 degrees here right now, and in Phoenix it's 110 degrees, because I checked with Dr. Swimmer. He's a top mathematician at Arizona State University. He totally endorses this, as well as 39 other major scientists of the world.
To bring Newman power to the people of the planet. 25 years ago, a patent attorney suggested that for Joe to prove his radical ideas about energy, he'd have to build a working energy machine. For the next 2 decades, he had to try to convince the world that it worked.
Now, instantly, that told me that the magnetic field was not relative.
One of the first who took notice was mechanical engineer and alternative energy expert Milton Everett, who worked with the Mississippi Department of Energy.
He's honest.
When I first went down there, I went down as a total skeptic. I said, this guy's, there's got to be something wrong. Either he's a charlatan or a con artist or trying to trick somebody or whatever. And
he told me right up front, he said, I came down here to shoot you down. I said, great. I said, do it. I said, let me just show you. I want you to listen to my theory. Now, he was a mechanical engineer, and he listened to what I had to say. It all made sense to Milton the first time he heard it, because he's mechanical. He said, Joe, I just think that's beautiful, what you just told me.
And over a period of time, with what I saw and with what the engineers from Mississippi State saw, you know, I became convinced.
I'm sure a lot of y'all come here totally unbelieving. That's okay. History always repeats itself.
Joe said, well, what do you think, Milton? And I said, Joe, I truly think you've got something here that is going to change the world. And then he asked me the tough question. He said, will you stand up with me and tell the world this? And that was a gut wrencher. And so I had to reach down in my guts and say, you got the courage to stand up and say what this is? And I told him, yes, I do. I'll stand up with you.
His machine is probably the most important invention and discovery in the history of man.
As a result of Milton, then I got other people involved. I gave a demonstration at the Hilton in New Orleans. You know, A. Albert was there. A whole bunch of scientists was there speaking, and it was packed with people, 1,500 people in there. The fire marshal that came in because there was so many people, wouldn't let nobody else in.
To a man who needs no introduction, Joseph Newman.
Well, I've worked with Joe now, this is actually my 20th year. I became fascinated by his work and what he was proposing, so I went to hear him at Tulane University. At that time, knew a number of scientists, chemists, electrical engineers, physicists, and I got all of these gentlemen together and drove them literally to Joe Newman's workshop in Mississippi at the time. All of them spent the better part of a day with Joe, looking at his prototypes, testing his various prototypes extensively, and all of them, to a person, signed affidavits attesting to the validity of his work.
Throughout the early 80s, despite the affidavits, the U.S. Patent Office sat on Joe's application to register his invention. Eventually it was turned down on the basis that it was a perpetual motion machine, something deemed impossible.
It's not a perpetual motion machine because there is a lot of power generated internally called back EMF, but he figured out a way to use it so that it would add to the power coming out rather than detract from the power. In some sense, think it may have been a cover-up for what they really knew that it was, and they wanted to keep it out of the public commercial application.
So Joe may be the first person to harness this usually wasted energy, but that didn't help him with his patent battle.
I think the Patent Office acted erroneously here. In fact, outrageously erroneously. I have worked with every commissioner of patents since I have been in Washington, and I'm saying that in the small minority of cases, the Patent Office procedure is wrong.
The only comment that the Patent Office made was the judge should refrain from believing in the tooth fairy. Now that's no kind of credible evidence. When I had over 40 scientists who had endorsed and signed affidavits that this invention worked, I did that in good faith, and my government betrayed it and tried to say that me and all of them were conspirators or incompetent. That was their comments they made about these people.
Today, Joe holds several foreign patents, but still no U.S. patent, something he needs to generate large amounts of capital to put his machine into full-scale production. And because he doesn't want the technology buried by energy companies, Joe's been picky about who gets control of his machine. He once turned down an offer for over $200 million because the Canadian investors couldn't guarantee they'd sell the machine to the public at a fair market price. Now he spends his time traveling from shopping malls to clubs, trying to convince people of its importance. Along the way, resisting the odd challenge.
Takes to turn that blade.
This is not showing me that the power over there exceeds the power here.
See, I challenge you. Let's see you go get this fan blade. Let me see you run it at 100 revolutions a minute, and let me see you do it on the amount of wattage that you see right here. Now that's current, and if you can't add that up, you're not intelligent at all. That's what...
Joe never stops trying to get the message to the people. He's appeared in Life magazine and on the Johnny Carson Show.
Anybody know how to read an amp meter? Okay, this is a 50 amp meter. You can see where your 10, your 5 is, and you know everyone knows the mark is 1. And as you can see, we got 10 12-volt batteries there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And you know these 12-volt batteries got 12 volts. Now you will see on a half of a turn